Welcome back. Time is short. Let's spend some with the muse. Welcome to Moments with Aatherya at the DreamForge Channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most vital elements of storytelling, the opening line. As writers and readers, we know that the first sentence of a story has the power to transport us, intrigue us, and, like a switch, snap us into that state of willing suspension of disbelief. Whether you're crafting your first novel or simply trying to understand what makes fiction work, the opening line is where it all starts. In this segment, we'll explore why opening lines matter so much and how they set the stage for unforgettable journeys. And because we're DreamForge, our examples will come from the best of speculative fiction, stories that push the boundaries of imagination. And I want to see your favorite opening lines in the comments, or opening lines you've written for a novel or story of your own. Let's start by talking about the role of the opening line. It's like a doorway. The opening line is the very first step into the world you've created, or the world you're reading about. Let's think about why this matters so much. First, it grabs the reader's attention. In a crowded bookstore, an online library, or your critique group, your first line might be all the time you get to make an impression. It's the hook, the spark, that makes someone say, I want to know more, I want to read more. Second, it sets the tone. Is this going to be dark and suspenseful? A whimsical adventure? A cerebral exploration of humanity's place in the cosmos? The opening line often gives readers their first clue. Finally, the opening line sets expectations for your style and voice. Are we getting into poetic prose, hard-hitting action, or sharp wit? The opening line can answer that question too. Now, why this whole subject came up for me is that I'm starting a new novel, and I did a bunch of research on opening lines, and then I crafted this one for my novel, which is going to be tentatively titled Cradle of Memory. It goes like this. Dom always said the moon was like a mirror, showing us what Earth used to be, and what it might never be again. Now, is that a good, a bad, or a fair first draft? Let's talk about it. What makes a great opening line? Let's look at some examples from speculative fiction and break them down. It was a dazzling four-sun afternoon. Now, that's from Nightfall by Isaac Asimov and Robert Silverberg, two of the greats. With just 6 words, this line tells us we're in an extraordinary world, one where the sky is crowded with suns. It's simple yet vivid, inviting readers to imagine a place far removed from our own. And then here's one you'll know. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. That's J.R.R. Tolkien from The Hobbit, all the way back in 1937. Why does this work? Well, it's simple yet intriguing. It introduces the central character, a hobbit, and immediately raises questions for the reader. What is a hobbit? Why does it live in a hole? The line sets a whimsical but cozy tone, drawing the readers into Tolkien's richly imaginative world. Another one you're going to remember. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. That, of course, is George Orwell in 1984, which was written in 1949. Why it works. The peculiar image of clock striking 13 immediately signals that this is a world different from ours. The juxtaposition of bright and cold adds a contrast. Now, it's not an unusual contrast. You can have a bright, cold day in April, but it mentally, subliminally, it gives you that contrast of bright and cold, and the clock striking 13 gives you that unusual world. So altogether, this opening line hints at underlying tension in the story, and it pulls readers into a reality that can feel familiar, yet somewhat skewed. Okay, so how do you write these lines? Now that we've seen some examples, let's talk about the techniques behind them. How do writers create lines that capture our imagination? I got 5 points from the research that I did. And obviously, there's more, and there are more different ways, but these seem to be a solid foundation for writing your own opening lines and making them good. So, first thing you can do is introduce a unique world. Arthur C. Clarke in 2001: A Space Odyssey begins that novel with this. The drought had lasted now for 10 million years, and the reign of the terrible lizards had long since ended. As you can see, this line paints a picture of deep time and evolution, setting the stage for a story that's as much about humanity's origins as about its future. Second thing you can do is create intrigue. Octavia E. Butler's Kindred grabs your attention with this line. I lost an arm on my last trip home. My left arm. That's great. This line raises immediate questions. What happened? Where is home? And how did it cost the narrator an arm? The third thing you can do is set a vivid scene. Ray Bradbury's The Jar opens with this one. It was one of those things they kept in a jar in the tent of a sideshow on the outskirts of a little drowsy town. Always love Ray Bradbury. This line puts several things together. It combines setting, mystery, and mood. You can almost smell the sawdust and hear the murmurs of the sideshow. 4. Combine humor and scale. Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy starts with this. Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Now this line's pure Douglas Adams. It's whimsical, expansive, and just a little absurd. It sets up the vast, humorous universe of Hitchhiker's Guide while giving us a sense of our small and insignificant place within it. And the fifth thing, convey mystery through simplicity. For this one, we're going to go back to Isaac Asimov, I, Robot. I looked at my notes and I didn't like them. I spent 3 days at US Robotics and might as well have spent them at home with the Encyclopedia Tellurica. Now, this line works because it grounds us in a relatable scenario, which is just discomfort with your own work. But it hints at deeper complexities to follow. This line also works because it places us immediately in a world of advanced technology while grounding us with that relatable emotion, disappointment. Asimov's simplicity and precision draws us into a story that's both human and futuristic, and that's something that he often did. Now, what are the risks of weak opening lines? Because all opening lines aren't created equal, a weak opening can fail to capture attention, can mislead readers about the tone or the focus of the story, or leave readers indifferent, which is really a problem, a death knell of your work if they read it and they're not somewhat intrigued or somewhat hooked. Let's consider an infamous example of an opening line. If you were an English major in college, your professors may have put this one by you, which always got chuckles out of the class. It was a dark and stormy night. Now, why is that bad? Maybe it's not. But this phrase originates from Edward Bulwer Lytton's 1830 novel, Paul Clifford. Its full version, laden with adjectives, has become a textbook example of melodramatic and overwritten prose. However, it continues to appear in literature and pop culture and demonstrate its lasting impact. For example, Madeleine L'Engle's opens A Wrinkle in Time with, "It was a dark and stormy night." Fully, it was a dark and stormy night. In her attic bedroom, Margaret Murray, wrapped in an old patchwork quilt, sat on the foot of her bed and watched the trees tossing in the frenzied lashing of the wind. That's almost as melodramatic as the original version. This sets a mysterious tone, however, for the story while paying homage to its gothic roots. Similarly, Neil Gaiman uses this too. He cleverly subverts the cliche in Good Omens with, "It wasn't a dark and stormy night. It should have been, but there's the weather for you." By playing with the reader's expectations, Gaiman uses humor to immediately establish the whimsical tone of his narrative. While it may set a scene, the overuse of cliched phrases can often fail to engage modern readers who are looking for originality. And that's even the trouble with the oft-quoted line from, who was that, Edward Bulwer Lytton. Because when he used it in 1830, it had already been used innumerable times before. So he was using a cliched line, and then he was making it terribly melodramatic. And that's why that line gets called out so much in English classes, not just because it was a dark and stormy night, it's somehow bad writing. So one of the things you need to do is be aware of opening lines that have been maybe used too much in the past. And if you're going to use them, either subvert them or make fun of them, but don't just keep using the trope and even make it worse by making it even more melodramatic. So let's wrap this one up. A great opening line is a gift to your reader, an invitation to step into a new world. It's also a challenge to us as writers to distill the essence of our story into just a few words. Now, this is just part one of this topic. In part two, we'll dive into more of my favorite opening lines from speculative fiction and analyze why they resonate. That's the books right here on the shelf behind me. Until then, let's take a look at your own first lines and ask, Are they doing all they can to draw readers in? Hey, thanks for watching and keep dreaming big. See you next time.